Hey, good afternoon, brothers. How you guys doing? Please let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay, but I think we should be all good. So while we wait to know that you guys can hear me, we'll just say hello to a few different people in chat. Dolph, Lagmeister, Mick, J Sharp, Kevlar, Jonathan, Tony, Highland, Tom. How you guys all doing? Nice to see you. Happy Sunday. Hope you're well. Um, I just updated my list this morning. Yeah, I got your updated list. So okay, cool. All right, awesome. A bit quiet today. I can turn it up a tiny bit. I'm basically using two different microphones, I guess. One for hobby hangout and a different one for this stream. So nice. Afternoon, everybody. Hope you're well. So today, obviously, it is the Blood Angels Army List show. So what we do on this show every week is we go through like 5 different army lists submitted by the community. This week's submissions come from. Maybe I should try and make this a tiny bit bigger. Can I do that? Yeah, here we go. All right. This week's submissions come from a couple of members, and members are in green in the chat. If you see people in green, then they are the members. So much love and appreciation for the members. So we've got a couple of members this week: Interspatial and Tom Harris, and then we got Lagmeister, Matthew, and Skirmish Games. So hopefully we'll get some cool lists. We grade them basically on like how effective they are at holding primaries, how well they can deal with infantry, how they do against like high armor targets, how mobile they are, and then after we deduct some points if they're too specialised, like if the list's too one-dimensional. I did see someone earlier today saying that they're going to a tournament next week and they're taking 30 Sangri Guard, and personally I just don't like that. I think it makes you very one-dimensional. But yeah, so I deduct some points if I feel like you're too one-dimensional. And that's where we are. It's also important to say that we do have that live giveaway going at the moment. So if you are... if you do want to win some models, all you need to do, I guess, is find the video that we put up on Friday. I guess if you go over to YouTube, you go to the Blood Angels Commander page. This Leviathan video is the video we put up on Friday. You just need to literally put a comment into that video and you have a chance of winning some models. So consider doing that if it's something that you haven't done already. And yeah, if you do want to submit your list, there is some information in the description of the video on how to submit a list for a future show. But basically you go into the community tab here and you're able to just post your list in the most recent community post and I'll pick it up from there. So that's how you can submit a list for future shows. Why do you keep calling it the Derodale Dreadnought? Is that because I don't pronounce it very well? And what do you think about the Land Raider Achilles, filled with Chapter Champion and Company Vets, 8 melta shots, and a 4+ invulnerable? I believe they've nerfed the Land Raider Achilles to a 5+ invulnerable interspatial, but I mean, I think it's still good even with the 5+ invulnerable. Big vehicles with like toughness 8 and invulnerable saves are generally very good. So that's pretty much everything. The only other thing to say is in this video description, so if you scroll below the video, you'll actually see that I believe we have now opened a Discord, and it has been members only for like the last week or something, but now anyone that clicks on the link can join Discord. So if you want to join the Blood Angels Commander Discord room, as well as obviously we've got the Facebook description, and there's some other links in the video description as well, but if that's something you want to do and just come hang out, you're more than welcome to do it. People have called Derodale's Dorito Dreads for a long time, just a joke on the name. Okay, so it wasn't just my pronunciation. Thank you, Reziel. Cool, so I think that's everything that I need to cover to start the stream off. And then as we go through the stream, you'll see in the top right, I'll put the name of the person's list that we're reviewing. So if you want to catch up in the stream later, or you want to skip through it, you'll be able to see whose list we're currently looking at in the top right hand corner. And then the other thing to say is after the video finishes, I will post all the lists into the comment section of this video as well. So if you find a list that you thought was interesting, you'll be able to pick it up from the comment section. The comment section doesn't seem to open until a few hours after the video is finished, but after that you'll be able to pick it up and grab the list there. And if at any point you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. I mean, it really helps the channel out a lot, all the likes and comments. So buy the Leviathan. I mean, the Leviathan is a pretty great dreadnought. I think it is probably, well, based on the math Hammer did, it probably does the most damage out of all the dreadnoughts, and it probably is the most survivable out of all the dreadnoughts at the moment. Yes, it is a little bit more points, unless, yes, you have to pay 1 CP to take it, but I think it's still a very good choice. Okay, so let's go ahead and start on our first list today, which is going to be interspatial. And yeah, as we go through the stream, if anyone's got any chat questions, rule questions, I do have both codexes here, so we can answer any rules that we can answer any questions that you guys may have about rules or anything like that. I sold out the Blood Angels Leviathan. Yeah, someone did we sell out the Blood Angels the Leviathan Claw? I want to check that before we get going. Not the Claw, sorry, the Leviathan Drill. Oh, the Drill's still in stock, so we didn't sell out the Drill. Or maybe it only sold out in your country. It looks like it's still in stock in the UK. It's such a cool model though, isn't it? Pity mine doesn't look nearly as good as that one painted, but okay. Morning Northern Hero, thanks for tuning in. Playing 2 Redemptors at the moment with a squad of 4 Eradicators. I like it. I mean, yeah, I usually recommend having some shooting in a Blood Angels army. And alright, let's get started on this. So this is an update for the review today. Made some changes. The idea was to be able to use Dread's Warden of the Ancient. I don't remember. This is the new tech marine power, isn't it? For some overcharge protection on intercessors, but oh no, Wisdom of the Ancient. Sorry. Okay, but I'm bemoaning losing the company champion. I love the Inceptor models, and I've got great conversions I want to use, but I couldn't fit them both in. Okay, so this is a battalion for 1800 points, and then an auxiliary support detachment for 140 points. Interesting. Okay, I don't know many people that take an auxiliary support detachment, or haven't seen this much at all in 9th edition. Alright, and we've got 1 extra relic, and yeah, I mean, so, yeah, someone said straight away 4 HQs, isn't that too many? Yeah, battalion is 3 HQs, so maybe that is a slight problem here. But I mean, we'll still review the contents of the list and then just work out. So, we have a captain on the bike, who's the Gift of Foresight, the Adamantium Mantle, the Angel's Sacrifice. He is the Chapter Master, the Storm Shield, the Angel's Exemplar, the Thunder Hammer, the Twin Bolter, and he is the Warlord. So this is exactly the Chapter Master that I made in the video about Dante. He is an absolute boss. He has a 1+ save, he has a 4+ invulnerable save, he has a 5+ feel no pain, he has toughness 6, he has 7 wounds, and obviously he has a Thunder Hammer, and every turn he gets to reroll 1 hit, 1 wound roll, and 1 save. So, he's super survivable. I love this guy, so, bonus points for making him my exact Chapter Master. I like this a lot. I've only actually managed to play him like 2 times because of COVID, but I believe we're going to be able to play some games here in the next 2 weeks. So, and an auxiliary detachment, you can take a HQ. Is that how you've done that? Okay, interesting. That's maybe kind of clever. I mean, I guess I need to read up on auxiliary detachments. I never looked at that to just take an extra HQ. I mean, I guess in some ways it's just the same as doing a patrol detachment, sort of. Okay. Then we have Librarian Dreadnought, Quickening Wings. It's sort of very standard, but he does have Imperium Sword, so he gets that additional attack. If you are gonna take a Warlord trait in Librarian Dreadnought, I'd say consider Champion of Humanity. I suppose it depends on what the librarian is killing, but if you're ever going to be killing characters, then Champion of Humanity is going to be a lot more valuable than Imperial Sword. But Imperium Sword isn't bad at all. And then we have the standard Sanguary Priest healer, who has the jump pack Selfless Healer, and he's actually armed with the Teeth of Terror, which I think is a pretty good pick, right? It's kind of an interesting one where, like, you can, some people take Armor Indomitus, some people prefer Teeth of Terror. I guess just, you know, take the Teeth of Terror. Like, I feel like without the Teeth of Terror, his damage output is just so poor. So at least with the Teeth of Terror, he can do some killing. So if you are doing a lot of charging, he can maybe do a bit of killing, and yeah, it's a decent choice. Okay, and then we have the like a regular librarian. Lastly, who is the Veil of Time. He is the Unleash. He is the Null Zone, the Psychic Fortress. He's a chief librarian, and he has the Tomb of Malachor, which means by taking this tomb, he can take one power from a different discipline. So you've taken Unleash Rage. Does this? Yeah. So a very buffy utility librarian, and I mean this is a very strong librarian as well. It's kind of pretty much exactly the one I made the video on as well. I mean, the only reason I suppose I've not made video on the Sanguary Priest is because everybody's already running it, but maybe in the future we'll make a video on that as well. Okay, so I mean all 4 HQ choices are strong. I'm going to say that in my new list, the only difference I have is I don't have a Librarian Dreadnought. I'm trying a Death Company Captain, but I mean the points cost, I think the Death Company Captain is like 150 points, so the Librarian Dreadnought or a Death Company Captain, I mean they're both strong picks. Librarian Dreadnought might be more of a nuisance actually. This has me thinking that maybe my Death Company Captain is the wrong choice, but yeah, maybe I have to math hammer a Death Company champion against the Librarian Dreadnought. But like 4 pretty solid HQ choices. You can only take 1 of any slot in an Ox detachment. Alright, cool. Thank you for clarifying that. But yeah, if you don't have... That is a good point that Adam just raised. If you don't have 4 elites, then if you don't have more than 4 elites, you could probably do this with 2 patrols. But I mean, you would end up beginning on the exact same CP anyway, so I guess it's fine, right? Because your warlord's in that big battalion, so you'd still have to pay essentially 2 CP to take that second patrol. Okay, so moving down, we have 2 squads of Incursors and a squad of Infiltrators. I mean, very solid troop choices. We know that Phobos troops are probably or arguably the best troop choices you can have in 9th edition. I guess 1 Infiltrator to hold some backfield and like 2 Incursors to be a bit more aggressive. Totally makes sense. Then we have a Redemptor Dreadnought. And the Redemptor Dreadnought has the Icarus Pods, the Plasma, and the Onslaught Ganon. Again, these are all the top tier picks. Right, when I math hammered these in the video, these are the best picks. So I guess you either know your stuff or you've been watching all my videos interspatial. But yeah, these are the best picks. We then have Sangri Guard, and it's 2, 4, 5 with bolters and swords, and then 2 with power fists and infernal pistols. I don't know if I had. I mean, I think it's fine. Maybe it's not quite what I would run, but I mean it's pretty strong. I do like those infernal pistols to be able to do a bit damage, and popping. Occasionally they can do like 8 damage in close combat, so I mean that can be insane if you're up against dreadnoughts or anything like that. So I usually recommend having like 1 infernal pistol and 1 power fist, but a couple of both is absolutely fine. We then have the flavour of the month, Vanguard Veterans, and if you could see my desk right now, I can just show you, like, we literally have Vanguard Veterans coming out of every place on the desk. There's so many of them. I just finished painting 11. I'm just painting another 9. Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws, very much a strong pick in 9th edition. So we have a 5-man squad, and we've sneakily got an Infernal Pistol and a Thunderhammer on the Sergeant, which is a good choice because we'll take the wounds or we'll take the damage on the guys with Storm Shields to begin with, and then I'm not so sure if there's much value on the Thunderhammer over the Relic Blade. I guess maybe I was gonna say, because the Sergeant usually gets he gets 3 attacks, +4 from Savage Echoes, +5. So you would get 5 attacks hitting on 3s or 5 attacks hitting on 4s, and then it's just 1 different strength. I mean, I guess this gives you a little bit more damage against armor, or maybe a little bit more damage against dreadnoughts or Death Guard, but I guess typically I recommend taking the Relic Blades, but I don't think this is a bad choice at all. I mean, 5 Thunderhammer hits, it's still going to do a reasonable amount of damage. If there's some way you can get Quake Bolts into another squad, to potentially buff these guys when they're hitting, then I guess it's really strong. And then we have a second squad of Vanguard Veterans, and this is pretty much what I'm thinking of running, right? Not these same loadouts and not these same squad sizes, but I'm honestly thinking I'm dropping my Death Company, and I'm taking 1 Sangri Guard and 2 Vanguard Veterans. The Vanguard Veterans are no joke at the moment. Their survivability plays a huge factor. And yeah, I mean, with Lightning Claws, they're generally very competitive. I guess, you have a base of 3 attacks, so potentially it's 5 attacks per model when you charge. 5 attacks per model on, let's say, an 8-man squad or something, and you unleash rage on them, you're potentially getting an extra 10 attacks or something. It's pretty great. And then we have the smaller Inceptor squad, but it's 4 of them, and they're all armed with plasmas. Now, Inceptors are something that I don't commonly use too much, but when we did do the Math Hammer on the Inceptors, they did perform really well. It's hard to... if we talk about the top 10 Blood Angels picks at the moment, Inceptors are definitely in the top 10 units. That's one of the videos that I'm going to make in the very near future, is the top 10 picks that we can have in our army list, and Inceptors are definitely in there, especially the plasma ones. So if they have any squad of 6 units or more, then each Inceptor gets 6 shots. So these guys arriving from Deep Strike get 24 plasma shots, strength 7, and then you can overcharge them for strength 8, 2 damage. So 24 plasma shots, it's hard to argue with that. And obviously they move fast, they're decent actually if you end up charging, and they can clear screens really well. Inceptors again, and then the Whirlwind. And the Whirlwind's kind of an auto-include a little bit at the moment, because it has the ability to disable Overwatch for any unit in the game, and it also has the ability to make any unit in the game fight last. And with the cheaper missiles, the Castellan, you'll get 2d6 shots, and you only need to make a single hit roll, and then you essentially make them fight last. Not just in your turn, but also in the enemy turn, which is pretty solid. So if the enemy has a really strong unit that you know is going to charge you in their turn, you hit them with suppression fire from the Whirlwind, and even if they charge you, they will still fight after your units. And for me, considering how important close combat is for Blood Angels, it's such an important stratagem. So it's maybe a tricky list though, right? Because and I mean, maybe my list might suffer from this a little bit as well. I mean, the one thing to say, I guess, is we've got, what is this, 325 plus 275, so we literally have 600 points of characters. So it's a lot. Typically people would run 3 characters, maybe 450 points, and you'd have 1 more squad of troops in here, or these squads of your melee units would have 2 or 3 models more in each unit. But I mean, you do have the way to res them. You do have a bunch of different options. We do manage to get the Utility Librarian and the Librarian Dreadnought, and we know the Librarian Dreadnought is an absolute monster in close combat. He'll kill just about anything. If you are going to come up against enemies that have a lot of characters, then change this out for Champion of Humanity, and Librarian Dreadnought will do a ton of damage. Because I think the one weakness with the Librarian Dreadnought is his ballistic skill, his 3-up ballistic skill. And by changing this out for Champion of Humanity, like if there's a character with an engagement range, then you get +1 to your hit rolls. You still get an additional attack as well. So if you manage to, if you manage to charge in, you get those 6 attacks. You get 7 attacks from having the halberd. You cast Quickening yourself, so you potentially have 10 attacks. So then you get the one from Champion of Humanity, which essentially gives you 11 attacks hitting on 2s, and you're pretty much going to be wounding on 2s, right? Because you're going to be strength 12 for the most part with a +1 to your wound roll. So yeah, 11 attacks hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, and then it'd be like -4 and a flat 3 damage. It's pretty disgusting. But this is a very tournament style list. I think it's a very strong list. I'm trying to think, like, if I compare this list off the top of my head to my list, I think I don't have the Inceptors. I have a Leviathan Dreadnought, and each of these 3 squads is like beefed up. And I don't have the Librarian. But I said I don't have the Librarian Dreadnought. I've got a Death Company Captain. I don't have the Redemptor Dreadnought. I've got a Leviathan Dreadnought, and I don't have the Inceptors. But I've got all 3 of these squads with quite a bit more beef in them. And there must be some. Oh, and I've got some attack bikes running around with multi-meltas because you can't beat those 55-point attack bikes with multi-meltas, especially if you want to bring them in from deep strike or strategic reserves and just pop some things with multi-meltas. They can be very handy. But I mean, attack bikes with multi-meltas versus Inceptors, they have slightly different roles, but they can still pump out the damage of a similar nature. It's like if you just need a little bit of shooting wherever you want it on the board, then those attack bikes, I guess, would kind of fill the same roles. And yeah, I mean, the one issue about going so strong on characters is you do potentially you could potentially make the opponent think about picking Assassinate, which is maybe okay. I mean, it depends on how well you can protect your characters, I guess. But overall, I mean, troop choices are good, elite choices are good, all the character choices are good, and then everything is picked from like top tier units. I wouldn't say there's a single pick in here that is like I said, I'm going to do a video on the top 10 units that Blood Angels can pick in 9th edition, and I think every single unit in this list is within that. And maybe Reziel, I see you're saying that you think Death Company drop is a mistake. I got to play some games. So my first games after this lockdown are going to be probably like Monday the 15th. So 2 more weeks and we'll get some games in. But yeah, you gotta play some games, and but overall, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. You could take another hero of the chapter and put it on your librarian and give him like psychic mastery, right? So he gets +1 to all the psychic tests. I feel like that might be valuable in that it might be important to get some of these powers like a more guaranteed cast. So that could be good. But hold on, yeah, sorry, you do already have 2 heroes of the chapter, sorry, so you can't do that. This bit of the list, I guess, is just wrong then, because you've got the Tomb of Malachor, you've got the Teeth of Terra, and you've got... Yeah, so this should say 2 relics of the chapter and 2 heroes of the chapter, sorry. So, but I mean, I guess there is some little tweaks you could do around that. I found I get more mileage from Vanguard Veterans and Sangri Guard over Death Company. Yeah, that's very much what I found as well. So, and when we compared Vanguard Veterans against the Death Company, the Vanguard Veterans were 70% more survivable in certain cases, which is it's a lot of additional survivability. So we're going to go for... We'll start scoring then. Objective holding and troop holding. We talk about if you have the 3 Phobos units, we generally give you a 9 out of 10. I think that's fine. I think these Phobos units can hold your objectives. I don't think you need to necessarily worry much else about it. Your Inceptors, your Redemptor can definitely do some clearing. So can the Castellan, if you just need to maybe clear a screen or something. So your clearing ability is decent. I mean, it's not insane, but like I do talk about trying to have like 500 points of shooting in a Blood Angels list, and this has got 405 plus 125, so it's like 530 points of shooting. So I think it's about perfect for anti-horde infantry. I mean, I don't think there's much else I would change. Anti-vehicle monster, then obviously we've got our lightning claws, which are going to be amazing in certain situations. They're really good against like Death Guard. They're going to be really good against Death Wing. They're going to be good against dreadnoughts. Just so you know, lightning claws will actually, if you charge with Red Thirst, lightning claws will actually wound toughness 8 models for Blood Angels on a 55% chance. So even if you, I don't think there's that. Maybe Custodes still have some dreadnoughts that are toughness 8, but like, Leviathan Dreadnought got nerfed from toughness 8 to 7 for Space Marines at least. So the lightning claws are great, and then I guess the Sangri Guard are good as well. And we do have that Thunderhammer and the Librarian Dreadnought. So I think you can do plenty good work here against monsters and infantry as well. And I think it's the same. I think it's like a 9 out of 10. Like I don't think there's much to change. Mobility wise, well, I mean, the Redemptor obviously isn't mobile. The Whirlwind isn't mobile, but it doesn't need to be. And then everything else is super mobile. Obviously, by having the Phobos troops, you can also do guerrilla tactics. So, do you ever cover any Flesh Tear lists or strategy videos? I have not typically done many submissions from Flesh Tearers Creation Born, but I do have the Blood Angels Codex, and I have read it, and I have considered running a Flesh Tearer army just one time to get like a feel of it, because obviously like I'm not actually really running any named characters for Blood Angels right now, so I could run Flesh Tearers, and I do think like Seth in a drop pod right now would be super awesome. With a company champion or something. So I haven't done much on Flesh Tearers, but oh cool, and Jay Shap has given me a Flesh Tearers list for next week. Alright, so we'll definitely look into Flesh Tearers a bit next week. Thanks guys, I appreciate the kind words in the chat. It's very kind of you. So mobility again is very good. Like, yeah, I mean, like I feel bad going 9s across the board, but I feel like if you were going to go 10 on something, you would have to like sacrifice something else. So I think like 9s across the board is good. Maybe there's a couple of 9.5s in here. Like maybe your damage output against monsters is maybe like a 9.5. And then specialization. Like, do you know what? We'll go for a 10 on specialization. So if anyone is new to Blood Angels in the chat and they've never seen a really high competitive list, then I think this is a really good example of all the strong units that we can pick right now, and I guess all these units have huge reasons why they're strong and competitive in 9th edition. And I think if I was making a top 10, do you know what, I have actually started making the top, like, so I'm going to do a video on the top 10 army list, or sorry, the top 10 units for Blood Angels, but I haven't put the video together, right? But like, I'll have a Google Doc where I started making notes, right? So I guess like here's my Google Doc where I'm starting making notes to make my video about the top 10 units that we have in 9th, and we have Sangri Guard in this list. We have Vanguard Veterans. We have Primaris Infiltrators. We have the Redemptor Dreadnought. We have the Whirlwind. We have the Incursors. We have the Inceptors. So I mean, like, sure, there's maybe something that we've mentioned. Whirlwind, Inceptors, Vanguard Veterans, Sangri Guard, Redemptor, Incursors, and Infiltrators. Yeah, so every single choice here is in my top 10. And, we'll make another list for my top characters as well. But, yeah, I mean, this is a really well thought out list, Interspatial. It's going to be super hard for me to tell you how to improve this list. As I said, my list is super close to this. It's like, but I haven't played this list yet, right? So Do you know what? I'll just quickly show you my list, and you'll see there's a couple of differences, but I guess they're probably personal preferences. And I haven't played this list yet because I've made it, and we've been stuck in lockdown now for whatever, like 2 months here in the UK. We've been stuck in lockdown actually since Christmas Day. So my list is going with the double patrol option, and this is what I'm going to be playing on stream probably next week. I'm probably going to play a couple of games, not next week, whenever the lockdown ends. Sorry, like two or 3 weeks from now. And so I have the exact same captain as you. I have the exact same Sanguary Priest as you. Rather than the Terminator with the jump, or the Librarian with the jump pack, I just have the Librarian and Terminator armor, and I've used the Tomb to take wings. So basically 3 of my 4 psychic powers are basically the same. I've taken a captain with the Hammer of Baal and a Storm Shield on a bike. I think that's a pretty good pick. But I mean, when you compare it to the Librarian Dreadnought, I mean, they're very much and such, it's 5 points cheaper, but I mean, Librarian Dreadnought might be able to do a little bit more damage, but the captain is maybe a bit more mobile. Troop choices, we've got Infiltrators and Incursors. Elite choices, I've got an 8 Sangri Guard, a 6 Vanguard Veterans, and an 8 Vanguard Veterans. And then the Leviathan, I have the attack bike that I mentioned with multi-meta. I have a Whirlwind with the different launcher, but I mean, it's such a minor change. And then I just have the company champion with 2 veterans. And the reason I like the couple of veterans is here lets me like double down on holding certain objectives, and also the 2 veterans can perform actions, and they can also be bodyguards, right? If they're within 3 inches of a character, you can't shoot the character. So the veterans have some other uses as well. But so that's a list that I think is super competitive, and this list again is very similar. Yeah, I think you mentioned that you said you could take Quake Bolts. Yeah, I mean, you could totally do that on one of these Incursor squads or something. Take some Quake Bolts to try and buff some of the combat of the Vanguard Veterans and the Sanguary Priests. Sangri Guards. But yeah, overall, I think it's a very solid list. If you wouldn't mind, Inner, I don't know what your lockdown situation is right now, but I would almost say, play this list a couple of times and then hit me up and tell me what are you seeing any weaknesses, is there anything you would change, and then maybe from there we can both build stronger lists. But yeah, generally I think a list like this is very good. It includes all the top units, it includes pretty much the top characters. This has actually given me some food for thought picking the Librarian Dreadnought. Is that a stronger pick than a Death Company captain on a bike? I mean, I would say do you know what? The Death Company captain on the bike's probably going to be a bit more survivable because he gets those death visions and stuff once he does get into combat. But the Librarian Dreadnought can probably dish out a little bit more damage. But I mean, at that point, it's very situational. It's like in some games the captain would be better, in some games the Librarian Dreadnought would be better. If I drop 1 troops and go double patrols, I can fit a chapter champion. I think that's better. He'd be all alone, that's the only issue. Would he be alone, or would you be able to get... the company veterans are only 20 points per model. I mean, I have mine armed with Storm Shields and Lightning Claws, but you don't need to go that far. You could just have a couple of veterans. I mean, one of them with a Storm Shield or something, if... But yeah, I mean, that together is 124 points, so you would need to find 20 more points. I'm not sure where you could find them, but I haven't played a list yet with only 2 troop choices, so this could be an error in my judgment, just trying 2 troop choices and the champion and the veterans. But I've seen other pro players or other top players use this. So I would want to try it out myself. If you drop a troop choice, do you think you could fit in 2 attack bikes with multi-metas? I mean, you could, but I mean, I don't know if you need the multi-meta attack bikes if you have 4 Inceptors, right? They're, if you want, attack bikes are 55 points, so you could literally have 4 attack bikes with multi-metas, or you could have the Inceptor squads. Now, attack bikes would be better against tanks or something, but Interceptors are going to do a lot better against infantry. But yeah, okay. So I mean, I think that your list is a top tier list. as I say, like, because I haven't managed to play so many games recently because of COVID, I can't give you too much more advice. But yeah, everything in that list is solid. Like I said, we have a Facebook group and a Discord now, so you can join them in the video descriptions if you want to. If you want to play, like, when you've played it a few times, let me know how it goes. Yeah, I mean, the two Vanguard Veteran squads I'm running, one is complete Lightning Claw Storm Shields, but with the Sergeant with an Infernal Pistol, so he's got an Infernal Pistol and Lightning Claw, and the other one is like 3 Lightning Claws, 1 Relic Blade, an Infernal Pistol and Sergeant, 1 Power Fist, 1 Thunderhammer. So, I mean, I've kind of done the same thing as you. I've got 2 guys with chainswords in that squad. I've kind of done the same thing with you in that I do have, like, a heavy weapon in one of them, and I guess these Vanguard Veterans would be much more likely to be going after infantry targets, right? Because they're all Lightning Claws, essentially. So this Vanguard Veteran squad is a replacement for my, like, 5-man death company I've been using, had, like, 4 chainswords and 1 Thunderhammer. But yeah, I mean, some people obviously do a lot of work with Forlorn Fury. The problem that I have, DJ Hart, with the Forlorn Fury is I've been playing Blood Angels for the longest time, and the people in my meta know how Forlorn Fury works 100%. So if I deploy my Blood Angels Death Company on the very front lines, they will not deploy any of their units anywhere close to 24 inches within them, right? So it's like I'm going to have to pay the points to jump forward, and then potentially I'm not going to get in range for charging. And I mean, I guess a smart opponent will try and do that in deployment, right? Like, I had that game against Necrons where I knew the Necrons moved 6 inches in pre-game move, then they move another 6 inches, and then they have those guns that are absolutely brutal in 12 inches. So I was like, I am not deploying anywhere that those... Oh, and then they can advance, right? So the Necrons can essentially move 12 inches plus a d6, and then if you're within 12 inches of that, you're going to get shot by, what is it, like 40 strength 5 minus 2 weapons per squad of Necrons. I was like, yeah, that's not happening. So, like, I knew about that rule before the game, and I purposely deployed back. So unless he's going to roll a 6 on his advance, he's not going to be in range to shoot that stuff. And I think against some players, if they're familiar playing Blood Angels a lot, then if you deploy Death Company on the front lines, they will either only have something that's very strong in the front lines that you'll be able to charge against, or they'll just pull everything back 6 inches, 12 inches or something, and they'll just deploy strategically. And because I've been playing Blood Angels in my little meta for so long, no one's ever gonna make it easy for me to get a Forlorn Fury off. So because of that, I don't seem to go after it nearly as much as I did. Like when it first came out, or when I first started using it, I used it all the time. You know, when we got those turn 1 charges off and we did brutal damage. But now it just doesn't seem like it's never nearly as much an option for me. But you know, I suppose it depends on the skill of your opponent, and also it depends, like you said, if you want to use Forlorn Fury in a different way to put your Death Company in a threatening position, then that's absolutely fine as well. So, but yeah, right now I feel like the game of 9th edition is all about being strong and survivable and holding primaries. Like, that's a huge part of the game. And if you compare Death Company against Vanguard Veterans, the Vanguard Veterans are going to hold objectives way more effectively than Death Company, except against the Mortal Wounds. But, I mean, some armies have Mortal Wounds, some don't. So, obviously, you have to deal with that. Cool. So, alright, good list. First list. Thank you for submitting that one, Interspatial. I like it. And I think that score is going to be very hard to beat today, honestly. But we will move on to list number 2, which is Tom Harris. Okay. Yeah, I suppose it's true that they may have to give up some of their board positioning because of the threat of Forlorn Fury, but then that also determines, like, how big a Death Company are you going to run, right? Like, I don't run 10-man Death Company. I usually run like 5. I prefer big squads of Vanguard Veterans and Sangri Guard. I have done for a long time, actually. Probably since 9th edition came. I'm thinking back, like in 8th edition I usually ran 10-man Death Company, but I don't think I ran 10-man Death Company in 9th edition, barely at all. So, you know, if you run the big Death Company and you use the Forlong, then by all means I think that's still a strong pick. And you know, like when we were looking a minute ago when I showed you my list of top 10 units, right? I had Death Company in there at number 3. So, you know, I still think the Death Company are a very strong unit. I'm just not running them right now. But, you know, things change, rules change all the time. So, yeah, I mean, if you're running 10 Death Company, then sure. I think you're right. The threat of Forlorn Fury can tactically help you secure the middle of the board. And yeah, I mean, you can always deploy the Death Company last. Yeah, you can be smart in your deployment and do that. I just do wonder if the other person knows there's 10 Death Company deploying, maybe they give you a little bit more of a wide berth, right? And there is a really nice strategy you can do now with the Death Company, and being able to get that Savage Echoes in turn 1 from the Sanguary Priest is super awesome as well. So yeah, I mean, Forlorn Fury isn't a bad strategy. I'm just not running it at the moment. But I mean, you know, there's plenty of different ways to play this army, I guess. So that's one of them. All right, so let's move on to Tom, who is also a member. So we just generally do the member videos first. So, and hey Tom, I'm glad to see you in the chat today. Nice. Okay, I thought about doing an Invictor suit in a Phobos library and a big Death Company for Forlorn Fury. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do Forlorn Fury, I guess maybe having something like an Inflictor that can do concealed positions helps, right? Or like you said, a Phobos librarian that can be in a concealed position. It definitely helps. Maybe you just need to lean into that a little bit more, and I'm not leaning into it, so maybe that's why I don't see super value in that. And what are you running with your 10-man Death Company? I think when people are running 10 Death Company, you're generally seeing. Thanks, Adam. When you're running 10 Death Company, I think you're generally seeing like 3 Thunderhammers and then the rest bolt pistols and chainswords, something like that. Some people might run more than 3 hammers, but 3 seems to be right. Okay, so here's the current iteration of a Blood Angels list for tournaments. I'm thinking I can have the Vindicator and Derodale in the backfield holding objectives or just peeking out and shooting good targets. The Volkites and the Derodale will let me get mortal wounds on top of hitting pretty hard. I'm hoping to get 2 turns out of both before they get popped, and hopefully that will be enough damage to keep my opponent thinking about dealing with them while my main force moves forward. I like 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts moving up the midfield, being aggressive and trying to move into combat. I think they will also handle screening units very well, especially hordes. My big squad of Sangri Guard will do what they do, while my smaller squad will hunt out heavy infantry, and Death Company will go in and do their thing. The Suppressors are in there for holding objectives and move quickly to take over other spots of the map. I might hold 1 unit in reserve so I can drop them in the enemy backfield and annoy their objective holding units. My Librarian will be buffing units and stripping them vulnerable saves, plus my Sanguary Priest having Soul Warden will help with mortal wounds. Okay, so this is a Vanguard detachment, so we start with 9 CP. So I guess we're probably going to be a bit lighter on troops here. So let's have a look. And we start with, we got 1 relic, and we also have the Angel's Ascendant, so we'll have like one sergeant upgraded to something else essentially. Okay, so we've got Librarian, we've got regular Librarian, Unleash Rage, Null Zone, Shield of Sanguinius. So it's 2 powers from the Sanguary discipline and 1 from the Space Marine discipline, and that's with the Tomb of Malkador. You've missed a psychic power. You can have 1 more. If you're making him Chief Librarian, you get an additional power, and if you take Tomb of Malkador, you get additional power. So you get 1 more power here, Tom. So plus 1 power, and it would be from the Sanguinary, because you've picked 2 from Sanguinary, right? So maybe you just take wings or something and make him like super mobile, jump pack plus wings. That might be an option. Or quickening, I guess, maybe to give him a bit more oomph in combat if he ever ends up in combat. Okay, and you fight against a ton of Necrons and Death Guard. Cool. Okay. Can Sanguary Priest take the Quittle Pistol, or can, since he's the Chief Apothecary? Yeah, I mean, I believe the Sanguary Priest could take that pistol. I'm not sure it's a super high value pick though, right? Alex, let's just have a quick double check on that. Chapter command. Chief Apothecary, a Quittle relic. This model with a bolt pistol, a resolver bolt pistol. So it's basically a pistol 1, strength 5, -2. Each time an attack was made weapon against infantry, it always wounds on a modified roll of 2+ and has damage characteristic of 4. So I mean, it's okay. Why a Quittle over like Teeth of Terra though, right? Because the Sanguary Priest has like, I think he has 3 attacks. It's typically I usually make like my Sanguary Priest naked and just keep him out of combat, but yeah, it's 3 attacks on the Sanguary Priest. So if he charges and he has Savage Echoes, it's 5 attacks. So if you take the Teeth of Terra, it's 8 attacks. Teeth of Terra is +1 strength, so it's strength 5, and it's -1 2 damage or -2 2 damage. I don't remember off the top of my head. I feel like it's -2 2 damage. Would that not be a lot stronger than one shot with the pistol, Teeth of Terra? Yeah, -2 2 damage. So 8 attacks at strength 5, with her +1 to wound from Red Thirst potentially. -2 2 damage. I feel like that's a better choice. Okay, so we have the Sanguary Priest here, who has the Selfless Healer. He is the Warlord, and he has the oh right, so this is why. So he has the Acquittal. Yeah, I mean, I think the Acquittle's fine, but I feel like the Teeth of Terra would be stronger. I mean, unless you're desperately not wanting to put him into close combat, right? And I mean, I guess I can understand the argument for that because he's not very survivable. So you're just going to keep him out of close combat and pop things with a pistol. Then I mean, that's okay. I don't think it's bad. The thing about the Teeth of Terra means, like, if you have a big unit jumping in, let's say you've got your big Sangri Guard jumping in to do damage, or your big Death Company or whatever, if he jumps in there with then his additional 8 attacks at strength 5, -2 2 damage, you feel like that extra 8 attacks. I mean, he hits on 2s, right? So you hit on 2s, and I guess you're probably going to wound infantry on. Well, you're going to wound toughness 5 on 3s and toughness 4 on 2s. So I guess like if he joins any sort of like melee, he's going to do a lot of work. So I kind of feel like Teeth of Terra is better. But is it? Yeah, it would replace his normal pistol, the Acquittal. I hope I'm saying that right. No, I believe the Sangri Ancient cannot take the tools for some reason. It says that at the top of the page, on the chapter command page, saying Blood Angels cannot take. What does it say again? Blood Angels Ancient cannot be upgraded to Chapter Ancient. That's what it says at the top of the page. Okay, so Acquittal I guess is fine, but for me, I think Teeth of Terra seems to make more sense. But I mean, maybe if you're just going to keep him out of combat and you're just going to occasionally shoot at something, then maybe that's fine, Tom. But you're right. He does get focused down sometimes if he gets put in combat. I mean, the other option would be to give him Artificer Armor, which basically puts him in Terminator Armor, right? Which gives him a 2+ save and a 5+ invulnerable save. You could do that. Some people I know run Armor Indomitus on the Priest as well to try and keep him alive that way. Okay, and then we move on to an Infiltrator squad. I guess this is for holding our backfield objective probably, or a forward position. We then have a Death Company, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4... 5, so it's an 8-man Death Company, 3 hammers. I think this is pretty much what we talked about. 8 to 10 Death Company with 3 hammers seems like a good choice. We then have the Derodale Dreadnought, which has the the missile launcher, the twin heavy bolter, and the Vulcanite Falconet battery. And this is actually the Derodale that we looked at yesterday. Not yesterday, sorry, Friday's tactics video. We looked at this Derodale, and I mean, it does pretty decent damage. 220 points, maybe eclipsed a little bit by the Leviathan, but this is a 36 inches generally. Like, all these weapons are 36 inches, and the Leviathan's like 24. So this thing could sit comfortably in the backfield somewhere, dealing out like a decent amount of damage every turn. Then we have 2 Redemptors, and you said they're going to charge up the middle of the board. Plasmas, onslaughts, frag storms. Good choice. These Redemptors are they need to be dealt with, right? Because they can't be left to get into close combat, because their fists are darn on absolutely nasty in close combat. So this is decent. We then have Sangri Guard, and this is an 8-man, all bolters and swords. And then we have a smaller Sangri Guard, which is 5-man, 2 fists and 3 axes. Then I have 2 squads of suppressors, and we've talked about suppressors a little bit, and they are okay. And I mean, they can do some backfield harassment, and they do have 48 inches range. I think on average, I think they kill about 1.5 infantry models. Like, if they're shooting against other Marines, they kill like a couple of models, 1.5 models a turn. So nothing amazing, but they also do turn off Overwatch on anything that they hit. So I guess, like you said, against Death Guard and Necrons, if they have a lot of infantry units with Overwatch, then you're essentially just able to completely remove that from the equation. That's the word I'm looking for. And then we also do have the Vindicator Laser Destroyer, which I think right now is an absolute monster. It's been out of stock a little while on Forge World. I definitely want to buy one. I love the flat 6 damage that it does, but obviously you don't have the Whirlwind in this list. So it does make me question, maybe there's a situation where we drop these suppressors, we'd only need to find like 25 more points, and we'd be able to pick up that Whirlwind. And the Whirlwind does give you the advantage to turn off Overwatch against anything. How would we get 25 points? Then I guess we would have to maybe drop like 1 model out of the Sanguary Guard, or we'd have to drop a few weapons somewhere. Oh, you've put a Hunter Killer Missile in the Vindicator. So yeah, maybe we drop 1 Death Company Marine, or you could maybe just drop a Thunderhammer, a Hunter Killer Missile, and like 1 of these fists, or 1 of these Gatling cannons or something. Yeah, so overall, I think it's a pretty interesting list. What I think, personally, like, so you've got 3 Dreadnoughts, but we only have 2 HQ. I feel like our HQ are in a good position right now. Like, I'm borderline considering taking 4 HQ. That's how strong I think the HQs are. And you've only picked 2, which is maybe fine, but I mean, like, yeah, I feel like they're, you know, like, if you are going to leave this guy like he is, then, you know, take the Death Company Captain on a bike with the Teeth of Terra. You could get like 11 attacks with that Teeth of Terra with the Death Company Captain, and he could take a Storm Shield as well, so he could be super survivable. He could be zooming around the map. He could be joining this big Death Company and giving them a bunch of rerolls. On a bike, he'd easily be able to keep up with them. If you did that and maybe dropped a Redemptor or the Vindicator. The Vindicator, I feel like I would like to keep a hold of, but yeah, it's interesting that you only have the 2 HQ. I mean, I don't think it's a bad list by any means. Like, I think there's a lot of top tier units in here. I'm not sure the Derodale quite makes the top tier, but I mean, it does have a good amount of fire for 36 inches. The Vindicator Laser Destroyer is really hard to argue with, right? Like, if it hits targets, it's going to do a lot of damage. The flat 6 damage is absolutely brutal. I like the Vindicator Laser Destroyer a lot. People have... I can't remember who it was in the Facebook group, but basically said, like, I need to do a Math Hammer video on this, because once you've done it, it'll be another model that once we've seen the Math Hammer, we'll be like, we need to buy this model. So I picked up a whirlwind and dropped the missiles from the Derodale. Okay, so that's interesting. Yeah, so drop the missiles. Those missiles are actually probably the most expensive thing for like 20 points, right? So yeah, we do have the whirlwind. Okay, so let's just put that in. Just say like whirlwind, and this is what we'll score, the whirlwind, and we lose this, and I guess maybe we'll lose our hunter killer missile here as well. So, okay, so we've got the whirlwind. Personally, for me, I would like to see another character in here, but yeah, I think overall, like I think there's high tier picks throughout the list, and I think there's a decent amount of synergy. One of the things that I find one of the strongest synergies on the board, though, is like, see the chapter master giving the Sangri Guard like full rerolls, or giving like a death company, I guess, full rerolls. That can be one of the strongest things we can do, and I feel a little bit sad that we just don't have that here. I mean, it's not a huge issue, but I do think it's one of the strongest things that we can do. I guess if you're playing against a lot of Necrons, though, and it is like 20-man Necron warrior squads with those heavy Gauze Reapers, so they basically get 40 strength 5 minus 2 shots when you overwatch. I can understand why you would want suppressors in that list. I mean, maybe against other armies they're not so valuable, but in that situation they could, you could lose a lot of units on that charge. In a 6 objective game, what is the holding the points? Yeah, I mean, in a 6 objective game, I guess your whirlwind and your Vindicator would maybe hold a couple of backfield ones, maybe with the suppressors. Maybe even the Infiltrators start mid board, and we try and get like the Death Company up to join them or something. But okay, let's look at scoring for this list, and I guess our objective holding is a bit weaker. I think a few people have mentioned that in chat, and I guess because we don't have any, or we only have one OBSEC unit, I mean that's going to hurt us a little bit as well. So yeah, probably like maybe a 7-5 for holding, or maybe an 8. Probably going to go 7-5 just because we only do have one OBSEC unit. I reckon a Vindicator with Siege Shield is just as good as a Vindicator Laser Destroyer if you roll averages, though we need the Math Hammer. Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll have to do Math Hammer on a Vindicator Laser Destroyer, because I need to know if I'm going to buy one. Somebody, I think it was Rezio last night, showed me a new Forge World character that I need to buy as well, so my shopping list for like, I literally got paid on Friday, and now I've got a shopping list for next month, so it non-stop. Alright, blast/clear. Let me think about this for a second, and I think this list is actually going to be very good for that. We have suppressors to clear, we have a whirlwind to clear, we have 2 Redemptors with macros and onslaughts, we have the Derodale, so I think the clear against trash in this list is pretty great. Probably better than the last list. So I think it'd be eclipsed a little bit there. Like it's probably about as strong as you would get in Blood Angels. I guess you've got 360 points of shooting here, plus another 200 points, so that's 560, and then a whirlwind, so 560, that's 700. The suppressors 800, so you've actually almost got like 1,000 points of shooting here, which is a bit high. I mean, I run that super heavy tank sometimes with the Tech Marine, which is about 700 points of shooting, and I thought that was high. So it is a bit high, but I mean, yeah, maybe that's where we'll mark you down a little bit on specialization. So about 1,000 points of shooting, but I guess against heavy hitting targets as well. I mean, we have a lot of options. We have 2 Redemptors, we have the Derodale's Falconites, we have the Whirlwind and the Laser Destroyer. Yeah, I mean, I think anti-vehicle monster, I think it's probably on a par to the one that we looked at the last list. Because I don't know the actual damage numbers for the Vindicator Laser Destroyer off the top of my head, I'll write that down right now. Make a video on the Vindicator Laser Destroyer. But yeah, I think probably what we'll say is like a 9-5 for that. Mobility, I guess, is a little bit less. We only have a couple of squads of jump packs, right, in this list. I guess the Suppressors have a bit of mobility. Sorry, 3 squads, Death Company and the 2 guys, and I guess we can Guerrilla Tactics the full boss, and then I guess our Librarians and characters are mobile. So maybe like a 7.5, reasonable mobility, but not the greatest. And then yeah, specialization. I think you're maybe a little bit heavy on shooting here, Tom. I think that you'll probably. I'm trying to think against Death Guard and Necrons. You're probably actually gonna. You probably actually have like a really strong list, right? Like shooting against those armies is generally going to be very good. The Death Guard don't have that much to return fire with commonly. And then Necrons, I guess having a lot of shooting will let you pick on units that need to be finished off because of reanimation protocols and stuff like that. But I guess against some armies you might feel a bit weaker. Shooting isn't our strong point, and we did, it is between like 900 and 1,000 points in shooting. So maybe like an 8 for specialization. Now, yeah, I'm trying to think like what I would drop to change this list, and I mean, I think just one of the shooting options needs to be swapped out for potentially like a chapter master or a Death Company captain or some other captain to add some more synergies, right? The great thing about the chapter master, or even like a Primaris chaplain on a bike, right? The great thing, it's mostly there to say hello to Mortarion. Yeah, I mean, I get that, and someone said this week that they killed Mortarion like super easily with Vindicators. They killed them in 1 round of shooting or something from full health with Vindicators. I mean, that list I believe was running 3 Vindicators, but still, 3 Vindicators killing a 500 point model in 1 turn is pretty good. So yeah, I think you just might come a little bit unstuck, and I do think that. See, if you had like a Primaris chaplain, the great thing about the chaplain is there's you have a host of litanies that you can choose to like. You can fill gaps within your army, right? And I mean the chapter master does that to an extent as well, but his buff is just obviously always just going to be bonus to your rolls to hit. Whereas like the chaplain can give you more survivability through like Litany of Faith, and give you better charges through Canticle of Hate. It can give you full rerolls. So that's sort of where oh, that was your stupid list. Okay, Tony. I mean, I guess it works though, right? If you manage to kill Mortarion in one turn of shooting, I mean, that's pretty great considering we talk a lot about how Blood Angels aren't a shooting army list. The normal Vindicator with its 2+ save from Siege Shield is significantly points less, hence I believe the Laser Destroyer isn't as great as you think, but what's not to love about damage 6 weapons? Yeah, I mean the damage 6 weapons when you when they fail saves, it's absolutely brutal to just be like, oh, it's 6 damage, or they fail 2 saves, oh, it's 12 damage, oh, you had 12 hit points, you're gone. I really like blowing rhinos off the table with the 6 damage of the falchions cannon. It's just like any rhino is just instantly, the second he gets line of sight on it, it's like, all right, your rhino's dead. So yeah, I mean it's an interesting list, Tom, and I think up against remember I mentioned that you need to pick one more psychic power, right? And I think up against Necrons and Death Guards, I think that list will do very well. But I think the ultimate goal for any Blood Angels player is having 2 heavy intercessors sitting on an objective and 3 units of assault intercessors be a good balance for troops. I think it's probably too many troops. I don't think assault intercessors, like our strongest units for Blood Angels in melee combat are like Lightning Claw, Vanguard Vets, Death Company, Sangri Guard. I'm not sure. for me, assault intercessors far too often get killed in no man's land trying to run from cover to cover because they don't have jump packs like all of our other firstborn units. But yeah, 5 troops seems heavy as well. But yeah, I mean, I think the ultimate goal, Tom, is to try and create a list that will be good against all factions. And I don't think what you've got is bad. I think probably either a Dreadnought or the Laser Destroyer has to go. And I feel like the Laser Destroyer is more of like a niche pick that you've picked, and you can obviously have a lot of fun with him, and it can be a high value target, and it can force the enemies to do that. So I honestly think one of the Dreads has to go, and at that point I guess one of the Redemptors. We bring in another character, and then maybe you bring in like the sort of thing that I was doing where we bring in like a company champion. Like, people talk about the company champion being an auto include because he's so strong for 70 points. So maybe you need to think about that. Would you mind me slipping a dumb SW Judicar into my list bonus meme character? He has 2 fight lasts and fight first always. Am I doing your list today? If you want to change your list, Julian, just resubmit it on the community tab, and we'll add it to your list when we go to do it. So hopefully that was useful, Tom. And yeah, I think if you are, like you said, you're up against Death Guard and Necrons, and I think I can understand why you were leaning a little bit towards more shooting for that, but I think maybe you want to consider trying to make a list that's going to round out and be good against everybody. But okay, so we're going to move on, and 3 Vindicators, potentially 106 damage per turn. They don't get that many shots, surely. I thought a Vindicator could do... Yeah, I mean, I guess if you roll a 6 and a 6. I was thinking Laser Destroyers could do 108 damage per turn. No. Okay. So, alright, we're going to move on to Lagmeister's list. So thanks very much for the submission, Tom. Hopefully it was useful. If you do want to make some changes and submit it again, totally can. And to anyone that is joining the stream sort of like halfway through, just remember we are doing a giveaway this week. All you need to do to be entered is to go over to the Leviathan Dreadnought video and leave a comment on that video. And yeah, I've got these 3 kits right here to give away, and that'll be happening on this live show next week. So they are the Storm Speeder, they are the Eradicators multi-part kit, and they are Vanguard Veterans. I think you guys can just see that these are all still in their cellophane. So these are getting given away on this channel this time next week, essentially. So yeah, if you didn't go over and like the Leviathan video and leave a comment, then you should do that today, or at least you've got a week to do it. Cool. All right. Moving on to Lagmeister's list then, that he likes to call Crimson Rain. And you're welcome, Tom. Alright, so it's a 2,000 point list starting with 7 CP, and it's a battalion, and we have 2 Heroes of the Chapter, 2 Relics of the Chapter, and the Angel's Exemplar. And I generally like this a lot, right? I like spending all these CP before the game starts. Good morning, Mark. I don't think that we're a particularly CP hungry army anymore, and as such, like, I'm happy to spend a bunch of CP to upgrade our characters and stuff before the match starts. So I like this a lot. So we have a captain with a jump pack, Power Fist, Infernal Pistol. He's a chapter master. He's master of the Codex. He's the Angel's Exemplar, Visage of Death. Master of the Codex means... I never run Master of the Codex. At the start of the command phase, if this warlord is in the battlefield, roll 1d6. On a 4+, you gain 1 command point. This doesn't seem like a great pick. So it averages basically 2 or 3 extra command points over the course of a game. I don't know if I particularly like that. I mean, you have a powerful chapter master captain. Oh, I'm confused. Hold on. Angel's Exemplar Warlord trait means that he can have 2 Warlord traits. So, what are the 2 warlord traits that you would be having on him, because you can have Master of the Codex plus, yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure I rate like a warlord trait that gives you 2 more CP. I just basically you just countered what I said, where I was like, we don't need a lot of CP, and then we've just taken a warlord trait to get more CP. No, I don't know if you particularly need that. I'd probably take something that makes my captain either get more attacks or just generally does more damage. He is wearing a power fist, so he is -1 to hit in close combat, so you could take something like the Champion of Humanity to counteract that. You're spending 300 points on Assault Intercessors plus 600 points on Impulsors. Is that a lot for elite? Yeah, you never want to spend that much on transports. I honestly think you can have 1 or 2 transports on your list. Like, even 2 transports for me is pushing it. Like, 1 transport, really? I mean, they're wasted points, really. I mean, sure, the enemy might have to shoot them, but they're never going to do any damage. Typically, they just go around and they're a little bit of a nuisance, and then they get shot off the table, or they, I think that's way too many transports to consider. The second warlord trait is heroic bearing. Okay, well, I mean, heroic bearing is fine, but I'm not sure I give Master of the Codex much weight at all. Do you find in 9th edition you're running out of CP, starting with 7, so you actually have 12 CP? You really think you need another 2? Like, what are you spending all your CP on? And that's a genuine question, because I don't think I've started a single game with... I'm not even sure I've spent over 10 CP in a single game since the Blood Angels Codex came out. Maybe? But probably not. Alright, then we have the Sanguary Priest, who is the Selfless Healer, and he is the Icon of the Angel, so we can reroll some charges. Then we have the Librarian Dreadnought, who has Smite, Wings of Sanguinius, Shield of Sanguinius. Strange to give him Shield and not Quickening, but I mean, I guess maybe that makes sense. I just think that if we're taking Librarian Dreadnought, you're much better off taking Quickening. Isn't it Quickening that lets you reroll the charge part now? I know they changed about a little bit of the Quickening and Smite. I know they changed Quickening and... Yeah, so Quickening lets you reroll advances and charges, and then you get an additional D3 attacks. So part of me feels like Quickening is more important than Shield of Sanguinius. If you really want the shield, maybe you have to take him as a Chief Librarian, but again, maybe that's just a little bit of personal preference here. I resent how pointless transports feel, especially since there's no Primaris drop pod. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of true. Transports are generally pretty expensive. Yeah, I mean, like, maybe you can have an Impulsor and a drop pod, but like, I don't think you can... If you're spending more than 200 points on transports, I'm starting to get worried for you, because they are sort of like dead points. Especially if you compare them against like jetpacks, right? Like, if you think of like a Death Company squad of 10 guys, they're like 225 points or something. You add on 10 jetpacks, it costs you 20 points. So if you're talking like spending 200 points on transports as opposed to spending 20 points on jump packs, like, it's really, like, they're just skewed. They're so expensive for what they actually bring you. My last game was months ago. It's to offset the CP I spent on upgrades. Also, the Librarian is more of a buffing character, so I chose Shield so I can give it to the Death Company. Alright, well, I mean, yeah, I mean, if the Librarian is more of a buffing character, then sure. But yeah, I think there's a better pick for than Master of the Codex. I think you could take, like I said, you could take Imperium Sword. You could take Gift of Foresight, would be a pretty good pick as well. Reroll 1 save every turn for free. I don't think with 12 CP you're gonna need more. I'm starting. The list I shared earlier in the stream literally starts with 4 CP, right? And I'm not taking Master of the Codex, and I'm only starting with 4. So yeah, that's what I feel. And honestly, in a couple of games, I've finished the game with like 2 CP, so I've spent 7 over the course of the game. So I don't I don't think this is a high value pick. Maybe in previous editions, like I feel like Blood Angels, you could spend all 12 of your CP in a single turn, but that isn't true anymore. It just, it just doesn't work like that anymore. Okay, troops. We have 2 Incursors and a tactical squad. I mean, I guess that seems fine. Incursors we know are great. Tactical squads we know are average. But I mean, it's fine, I guess, to have a tactical squad in there. 2 9-man Sangri Guards, 2 fists, 3 axes, 4 swords, and something else very similar, 2 axes, 5 swords. So both of those squads seem pretty well balanced. We also have the Sanguary Ancient, who is the Rites of Battle, Warlord Trade, and the Wrath of Baal Relic, so that all of our elites, or all of our jump pack elites, can move 2 inches further. We have the 7-man Death Company squad with 1 Power Fist and 6 Chainswords. And I feel like Visage of Death and Rites of Battle Warlord trait, right? A lot of people put a lot of weight into these, and I see them every week, so I'm just going to throw this out there, and I'm not saying change them, I'm just saying consider this. If you watched the video I made a few weeks ago called Blood Angels 101, I mean, you might have seen it, you might not have seen it. I literally had a slide in that video that said, like, to get your maximum points for your primaries, you literally need to hold, on most maps, right, you need to hold 2 objectives for 4 turns to get 40 out of the 45 points. So you literally just need 1 turn where you're holding 3, or you're holding more than the opponent typically, to get your capped primaries. So I think these are lower value traits. Now I would rather take traits that just let me kill my opponent on the objectives, because I feel like if you're killing them on the objectives, mission accomplished, I guess, you're still going to get those primary points. So I feel I haven't run these. I haven't felt any need to run these yet in 9th edition. When I did read them first, I thought, oh shit, these are going to be really strong and really interesting. But I have never had to use them. And someone else that is a supporter of the channel that's in the Discord as well, Pedroig, Pedroig is a really top level Blood Angels player, and he has been for a while. He basically sort of was saying to me the same thing. He was like, we just kill the opponents on the objectives. We don't need to out-obsec them or remove their obsec. I mean, maybe it's fine to have like 1 of the 2, but I'm not gonna suggest you change them. What I'm gonna suggest is play with it and feel like, do you need these really to get close to your maximum points in primaries? And think about it this way, right? Let's just say your opponent's double down on every objective on the map, and you're only going to be able to hold 2 for the entire game, right? It's going to be too risky to go on any of those other objectives. You're going to get killed, so you're just going to hold your 2. But you're going to hold your 2, and you're going to try and focus on scoring your secondaries. At the end of the game, if you held your 2 for the whole game, you got 40 out of your 45 points. If you're not in a position to win the game from getting 40 out of 45 points on your primaries, then I guess you've got a problem with your secondaries, right? It's nothing to do with you need more obsec or you need less obsec. It's more about you needed to score better on your secondaries. So, something to consider, and that's where I stand right now on these 2. But, just throwing that out there, so it's something to, when you play, keep a note of it in your mind. Are those things giving you value? And if not, change them out for something that you think might give you value. Angel's Artifice is a great pickup on your captain here. Makes him so much more survivable. And it's +1 toughness, +1 toughness, +1 wound, and +1 to his armor save. So it moves your captain onto 2+ save with toughness of 5. So he's like 20% harder to damage for those like small arms fire weapons. And obviously he's got a 20% extra save, and then he has also like 1 more wound. So basically, if you take Angel's Artifice instead of this, for example, he's 20% harder to wound, he saves 20% more times, and he's also got 20% more health. You add all those up, that's a huge improvement to where he's at. So coming back to my original argument, do I need to unobsec the enemy for 1 turn, or would I prefer it if my captain was alive at the end of the game, doing all his damage with Infernal Pistols and Chain Swords, Infernal Pistols and Power Fists? If he's alive for a few more turns doing that damage, is that more valuable than 1 turn of Visage of Death? To me, it is 100%, right? And that's where I am. That's where I stand right now, with my captains and with my army lists. Okay, and then we're going to go into two 5-man Devastator squads. One is all Grav Cannons and one is all Multi-Meltas. They also have the Cherubs. I didn't realise that Grav Cannons were that much cheaper than Multi-Meltas right now. Okay, and then we have a drop pod with a Stormbolter, and I assume one of these Devastator squads, or maybe even two of them, are in the drop pod. Okay, so secondary assault. Secondary picks, we're going to take Relentless Assault. We're going to take Oath of Moments and Raise the Banner High. I wouldn't pick your secondaries before the game has started, because there is sometimes, the map and stuff can dictate it, but having a good idea of what you want to pick is fine. My plan is to use the drop pod to transport the two Devastator squads in a single, simultaneously devastating offensive deep strike into the opponent's deployment zone, in cover if possible, and try and kill as much infantry with the Gravs and the vehicles with the Meltas. Since I'll always be picking up Relentless Assault with this list, my opponent will have to deal with 3 units in his deployment zone, which is a good distraction while the melee castle moves up. Yeah, that's kind of true. Some maps, the opponents might screen their entire deployment zone, so I guess you need to be aware of that. That might not be possible. If the opponent's running a Space Marine army with 3 squads of Infiltrators, they can very easily screen, even with 2 squads of Infiltrators, I believe, they can easily screen their whole deployment zone. So, in that case, you might have to take, Engage on all fronts and just drop these guys in quadrants and just try and survive in cover, like you say. Also take Furlong Fury, the Death Company, up the board, buff them with the Chapter Master rerolls and Blood Chalice, and the +1 to hit from the Ancient, cast Shield of Sanguinius on them, and fling them into the opposing line to kill, screen out precision vehicles. So this is a cool option. Just remember, if you do that in turn 1 and they feel super exposed and you can't, you're not happy where they are, you can use Upon Wings of Fire to get them the hell out of there as well and bring them down later in the game. So consider that. But I guess this is the strategy that many people were saying when we were talking about the last list, how they liked it. The 2 Cursor squads will be deployed into the midfield objective, while the 1 tactical squad is in the backfield objective. All my buffing characters, the Sangri Guard, will move up in a castle formation. If the situation calls for it, I can use the same combo I used on the Death Company on the Sanguary Guard and send them at whatever needs to die this turn. Okay, so for the most part, I guess there's a lot of good here. The one issue, I suppose, is a tactical squad on the backfield is against a good opponent. That tactical squad will die to a deep strike very, very easily. I think that against the top tier opponents, you're going to need Infiltrators, or you're going to need something else on that objective to help out. Heavy Intercessors, I suppose, now that they're getting released in a week or two, are going to be an option as well. I play against a Necron player that uses the Obsec Dynasty, which means everything he has as Obsec and troops count is 2 models for Obsec. Yeah, so in Lagmeister, in that case, I'd probably just double down on killing them off the objectives, right? If everything counts as 2 models, then you're only really going to be able to contest one objective. It's going to be the one with the Visage of Death. So, is it going to be best to just double down and try and kill them off all the objectives? Maybe that's going to be your main option. I don't know. You say you play against Necrons, right? So if he has a squad of Necron warriors, let's say he's a squad of Necron warriors with a heavy Gauze Reapers. They're strength 5, -2, 1 damage. He uses a teleportation orb on a I don't remember the name of the character, but I think it's an Overlord, right? So Necron Overlord uses a teleportation orb to teleport 20 Necron warriors within shooting range of this tactical squad. That tactical squad will be gone 100%. There's absolutely no way it will survive against that. And now you've just lost your backfield objective. And based on what you said about the Obsec issue, you're going to be struggling on other objectives as well. So is losing your backfield objective going to be ideal? Probably not. It's probably going to actually lose you the game if you can't get it back. And you're probably not going to be able to get it back quickly against all those Necron warriors, right? So that's where I think it kind of synergizes what I've been talking about a little bit about the Whirlwind being used potentially to deny out some of those Overwatches. It can also be used to help double down on that backfield objective, and or this needs to be Infiltrators or potentially heavy Infiltrators, I think. The key thing about the heavy infiltrators, I suppose, is that they are going to get not heavy infiltrators, sorry, heavy intercessors. They are going to get a 42-inch range bolt rifle, so they can do some work like that. But I mean, I think you've thought this list out pretty well, and I think it does have some nice synergies. The Devastators within Drop Pod, it's hard to argue with them. They do a lot of damage. Your Sanguary Ancient with the 3 squads of guys, again, they synergize nicely, especially with the Captain, like you said, and the Librarian to be the Sanguary Priest to get them into Assault Doctrine earlier. So I think it's a decent list. I don't think it's a super competitive list. Like, I guess like if you came up against an army that's got a lot of, like, you're going to fight last, for example, in close combat, then you're going to have some problems. And I guess if you come up against, because you're running a Librarian Dreadnought rather than the Utility Librarian Dreadnought is great in some situations, but I guess a buffing Utility Librarian is potentially better in others. Yeah, I mean, Interspatial, it's so hard to keep up. I generally try and avoid Battle Scribe. It's always, to me, it always feels out of date, so I just try and go by the new books. Infiltrators can take Helix Gauntlets. Yes, that's very true. You can pay 10 points for the Helix Gauntlets on the Infiltrators, and then they basically ignore the first damage roll each turn. I mean, that doesn't work so well, Eric, when it's 40, Strength 5, -2. If... Let me bring up the calculator. If it's 20 Necron Warriors with those heavy Gauze cannons, you're talking 40 shots hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. So you have to take 17 saves at -2. Your Tactical Marines normally save on 3s. Let's say they're in cover, so they're lucky enough to be able to save on 2s. You're still going to lose 8.9. Basically, you're going to lose 9 wounds in a single phase, and that was if you were in cover. And I assume that when he teleports in to kill you, he's not gonna teleport in, so you have a cover advantage potentially. It depends, I suppose. But yeah, so basically your tactical squad could get absolutely demolished by those teleporting Necron warriors. I don't know if your friend uses that tactic, Lagmeister, but I've had a friend that has Necrons and he's used that, and that can be very difficult to deal with. So use 2 intercessors for screening and 1 heavy in the back holding objectives. Ensure to get 2 impulsors just in case need to take 1 or 2 to do the terrain. Omnissiah, I think you need to submit a list, and I can have a look over your full list. I don't think 2 impulsors is absolutely the maximum number of transports I would have in a list. You're talking like 250 points for what, like a couple of Stormbolters, maybe like a heavy stubber. They don't do any damage. Like, they literally do no damage. You could shoot a heavy stubber the whole game, and you'll end up with one wound off an infantry model or something. Yeah, he would have to get all 20 in range, being 12 inches away. But I don't think that, like, he can daisy chain them around. It's not going to be that difficult for him to get them in range. Coherency with 20 models isn't that difficult. I mean, if all you've got is that 1 squad of intercessors in the backfield, he has a window of like 9 inches to 12 inches. They can just semicircle almost around you, and yeah, that would be how that would work, I guess. Tom says, my priority V Necron is to delete their troops ASAP, ignoring everything else, and you can start taking out their heavies and elites. Plus, that get sad picking up to 60 warrior. Plus that. Oh, they get sad if they have to take off 60 Necron warriors in a turn. Okay, so we're going to score your list, Lag. Like, the HQs are reasonably decent. The troops, these 2 are decent. This is questionable. The elites, these all make sense. I just say, have a good long think about your Rites of War, Visage of Death. Are they the best for you? And then the Devastator squads and the drop pod. It's hard to argue with that. Omnissiah is asking about impulsors in the chat. I mean, like, look at this for, like, there's a transport for 70 points. That I'm absolutely fine with. Spending over 200 points in transports, I think, is you're wasting too many points in your list there. I wouldn't do it. Okay. Alright, so objective holding, obsec. So we do have the 3 troop choices, but we're going to say it's like an 8 just because intercessors on their own in the backfield, or tactical squad on their own in their backfield, it's really not a strong play. And maybe it's okay against, like, if it's just casual games, but if you're playing in tournament play, this is not a strong pick. Anti-infantry blast. Well, I mean, we've got a ton of devastators to clear some stuff out. But beyond that, I mean, I guess our shooting is reasonably weak. I mean, I guess we do have 18 Angelus bolters, so that gives us 38, and I guess they can be near a warlord, so it's 38 bolters hitting on 2s. So we could still do a decent bit of clearing. So probably like an 8, maybe an 8-5. Anti-vehicle monster, I mean, these are going to be very useful. To take, they could kill a big target before the game's even started, really, in turn 1. And I guess the one thing that you said about splitting your fire on this, I'd just be aware that, like, to think about it sometimes, overkill. What's not legal, Commander? What did I miss that's not legal? Splitting your fire sometimes with this, like, sometimes it's better to just kill a target than to leave a few targets on low health. So that's something to consider, I guess. But I mean, I guess you know what you're doing with that, and you've played it a few times. So, and then we do have the big Death Company, and we do have the Sangri Guards. So, I mean, I would have liked to seen maybe like a Thunderhammer or another power. I mean, I feel like one Power Fist on its own is a bit. When Necrons use Veil of Darkness, they must stay wholly within range of the character with the relic. All right, okay, thank you. It's actually difficult. What? So what is it? They have to stay wholly, like, within 3 inches of the character? Alright, so maybe all of them can't get in. But, I mean, I think it's probably going to be enough that... it's enough to make that tactical squad have a real world of hurt, right? So, I guess anti-vehicle monster infantry would probably say, like, a 9. The daisy chaining. Alright, I've never... I don't play Necrons. I just assumed that they could probably daisy chain them if they wanted to. Cool. The Sanguary Priest groups are fine. The Captain, I guess, is fine. The Librarian Dreadnought is good as well. Yeah, it just feels to me like you may actually have got more value having one fist and one infernal pistol in these squads, and maybe like one infernal pistol or one thunder, maybe just one infernal pistol for 5 points in this squad if you could fit it. But I mean, I guess you're using the cherubs for alpha strike. I mean, because you're right at the points limit. I don't know. Do you know what you could do, and it would save you 10 points, is change this captain to a captain on a bike, because the bike captain is literally 10 points cheaper, and if you ask me, he is actually better. It's a bit of an oversight, I think, that they made the one on the bike 10 points cheaper. If you didn't watch my video of Dante against the Chapter Master, you should, because I would actually spend the 10 points here. I would save the 10 points here, and then I would get an Infernal Pistol into this Death Company, and I guess I'd probably get an Infernal Pistol into these, or maybe I'd put the Infernal Pistol onto the Sanguary Ancient, because why not? Mobility, I guess, like, mobility is generally pretty good. I mean, the drop pod with the Devastators, I guess we give that a pretty high mobility score, because it creates sort of like an imminent threat wherever you want it on the board. So we'll say like a 9. And then specialization, I I guess like specialization needs to be like a 7.5 or an 8 because we don't have any way to make the opponent fight last in combat, um, or we don't have any way to like we don't really have any buffs. I mean, we have Shield of Sanguinius, yes, but like we're missing like Unleash Rage and stuff like that, or like the Psychic Fortress bubble, and it's a pity that there's no way to. Yeah, I guess we probably need to just drop one squad of Sangri Guard would need to be 8 men to free up some points to replace this tactical squad, because I guess in the highest tier the tactical squad is going to be weak, and yeah, if you have infiltrators, then nothing can deep strike within 12 inches, so that nullifies that against the Necrons. It also nullifies other things like Chaos Terminators with meltaguns and stuff like that. It just means they can't shoot because in the turn they arrive, right? And that can make a big difference. And then infiltrators are also really good for screening, and you don't always need to use them quite so desperately. You're right that captains or bikes are better mathematically, but I like the jump packs. Yeah, I mean, I like the jump packs up until now, but the other thing with the captain on the bike is, if you think about it this way, the captain on the bike is pretty much always going to advance in turn 1, right? Because like you're going to need to get 20 inches across the battlefield. If you advance, then you have access to the stratagem skillful riders, so if they decide to actually try and shoot your captain, it's going to be -1 to hit as well. So we actually end up with like a more survivable captain in terms of toughness, wounds, save, and then also he's harder to hit. So yeah, I'm finding great value in those captains on the bikes. But yeah, I guess like we're going in with like a 42, and I think in sort of like a more casual setting, this is a very strong list. I know that these Devastator drop pods can be very brutal and can actually wipe out like a lot of units at the beginning of a game, especially the Sergeants. You don't shoot the Sergeants, right? You use them to buff the Devastator that's using the Cherub, so you end up with a bunch of multi-meltas being able to hit on 3s when they drop in, or 4 multi-meltas, I guess, and maybe like, what would it be, like 8 grav shots can hit on 3s, the rest hit on 4s. So I guess yeah, I mean, and I think in a more casual environment, it's a strong list, and I think like 42 is a decent score for that. Okay, so hopefully, maybe I've given you a little bit of food for thought, and we will move straight on to list number 4 for today, which is Matthew Askham. I think I've said that right. Okay, I think Blood Angel's the best Space Marine to start with. They shoot like Space Marines, but they won't encourage a castle, and you will need to reach out, but you can't be haphazard because they can still die pretty easily. Yeah, I mean, I agree with a lot of that, Tom. I do think we are one of the strongest factions right now, even though we got our book at the beginning of the edition, and maybe because of that we are a little bit weaker. I'm not completely sold on bikes. Trains can become an issue in more densely packed maps. It's situational. Yeah, I mean, that is very true as well, Alex. That in some maps, the bikes can have a little bit of issues. Hey, thanks for subscribing, Buddy C88. Appreciate that. But, I mean, I tend to look at the map and the battlefield for a long time in deployment and try and think like where my bike might go throughout the game, you know, like, and try and plan it out. So I think if you're doing that, like I think in one turn there was breachable terrain that obviously I couldn't get through, and I've played the bikes like 4 or 5 maps now, and I've only once had an issue where I didn't make a charge. Maybe previously my jump captain might have been able to make. So I'm okay with the bikes, but yeah, hopefully you'll see them on my stream soon. We'll be streaming games, and we'll have lots of bikes flying around, so I guess we'll see that. Okay, so moving on to Matthew. Greetings, brother. This is a list I've put together for friendly tournament I play annually with some close friends over a weekend, hopefully when COVID is over. Your criticisms will be much appreciated, as I was robbed of first place last year, doing have to go back to work and cut my weekend short. Okay, yeah, that sucks. Cool, so it is a battalion and it's 2,000 points, and wow, we haven't seen a Lamartis pick for a little while, so we start with Lamartis with Exorant of Range and the Canticle of Hate. We then have a Librarian Terminator Armour with Quickening, Wings of Sanguinius, and a Force Staff. I feel like a Force Staff is the worst pick here. The Sword Math Hammer is best by a long way, so I would say you want the Sword. The Sanguary Priest has the Artisan of War. He is the Artificer Armour. He is the Chief Apothecary. He is Icon of the Angel. He is a Selfless Healer. Okay, so basically he is a Sanguary Priest in Terminator Armour. And we talked about that earlier in the stream and said that that is an option. We then have 4 Intercessor squads, and based on the feedback that we just did, I don't particularly like this. I mean, one has a Thunderhammer, one has a Power Fist, but you know, they're not great at screening objectives. They're not super survivable. 4 with all bolt rifles doesn't feel necessarily like it even fits with Blood Angels. Oh, Interspatial, thank you very much for the $3. It's very kind of you. For the fist bump. Okay. Appreciate that, brother. I think that, like, if you're going to do this, you at least want to do auto bolt rifles in a couple of squads and push them forward. I don't, you know, I've done a video on why I think Phobos troops are the best troop choice for 9th edition. So like here where you've put the Thunderhammer and the Intercessors, I would instantly replace that with an Infiltrator squad. So I guess some improvements can be made to these troop choices for sure. Infiltrators for one, maybe a squad of them, maybe a squad of Incursors, or at least some auto-bolt rifles. But again, unless you're going to leave 2 squads behind to hold objectives, I don't know if I think it's super strong. We then have a Death Company, and this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Death Company with bolters and chains, and then 3 with power fists. I guess it's fine. The power fists, obviously, now it feels like this is a less, because of Terminators, because of Death Guard, power fists feel like, I think it either has to be Thunderhammers or no upgrade, right? Because if you come up against Dreadnoughts, you're just doing 1 damage with your power fist anyway, so it's kind of shitty, I guess, for lack of a better word. So I'm not sure. Oh, you're most welcome, Lag. Hopefully, yeah. I mean, play the list a few times and see. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you are going towards like more higher competitive plays, then maybe you need to consider some of the other more meta things right now. But I mean, as I say, drop pods with Devastators in them, it's hard to argue with them. They do a lot of damage, they kill a lot of stuff, they can really throw your opponent in the first turn, so go for it. Yeah, Power Fists to me feel like a weaker choice right now. I know that they've still got their high AP, but I mean, you never know what you're going to face. If you do face up against a Dreadnought heavy list, they are obviously a lot weaker. If you do face up against Death Guard again, they are going to be a lot weaker. The Sangri Guard, and it's 4 axes, 3 axes, 4 swords, 3 fists. I mean, it's a solid 10-man Sangri Guard. Again, it's hard to argue with that. I would like maybe to have seen a couple of infernal, like if you're gonna start messing with the weapon options, then a couple of infernal pistols in a 10-man squad seems good, or at least one, just for the occasional time that you potentially get 8 damage off. It won't happen every game, but sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll just do a flat 8 damage. It's enough to kill a character from full health. It can be, I've had it happen to me. I've had a Sangri Guard, I've had 1 infernal pistol in there, I've shot it against a Demon Prince, it's instantly killed him from full health, and it's like, oh, I was going to charge that Demon Prince, never mind. So like, infernal pistols for 5 points over power fists, which we just talked about, are kind of weaker right now. Something to consider. And then heavy support, we have 5 Eradicators with heavy melter rifles. So this is not a typical Blood Angels list at this point. We then have 5 Hellblasters. Again, if these are Hellblasters, I would be leaning towards Assault Plasmas, because they get more shots, and obviously they can move in Assault, and I feel like for maybe holding the middle of the board, Assault Plasmas would be better. Oops. And then we have a Predator Annihilator, which is a bit of a mad pick, right? No one is taking Predator Annihilator. No one thinks this is a strong pick. A Redemptor is much stronger. A Leviathan Dreadnought is much stronger. The Derodale we looked at the other day again is much stronger. The Predator is just not in a good place. Assault Intercessors, I guess, are okay against Death Guard, probably, if they get to fight first, that is. But I mean, they're not going to survive the counterattacks, really, are they? And then at that point, are you not just better getting Vanguard Veterans, so that, like, Vanguard Veterans into Blightlord Terminators are going to be pretty effective with Lightning Claws, right? Because they're going to wound 75% of the time, because they wound on a 4+ with Red Thirst, and then you reroll all the misses. So 75% wound from Lightning Claws against toughness 5. They're 1 damage, which kind of makes them even better against, like, obviously, because like before, Death Guard had the 5+ feel no pain. Now they don't have that. They just have the -1 damage. So if you're hitting them with a shitload of Lightning Claws, then you're bypassing that rule. And Lightning Claws are already -2 or -3, so you're going to push them straight onto your invulnerable save. If you do have your Priest there to potentially null zone them as well, I think Lightning Claw Vanguard Veterans are going to be super effective. So that's what I think. So this is a strange list. I guess you've got the Eradicators with the heavy melter rifles in the backfield, 300 points worth of them. So that's 6 Eradicators, and then Hellblasters, and then your Annihilator. So to me, it feels like a shooting list with like a Death Company, a Sangri Guard. I don't necessarily feel like there's a whole heap of synergy, especially, I mean, like Lamartes to buff the Death Company. I guess maybe Lamartes and the Death Company are deep striking in, and then I guess the Sanguary Guard are with the Priest somewhere, or the Librarian and the Priest somewhere. It seems strange to have taken Quickening on the Librarian when we could take Unleash Rage with our 10. Like, we've got 2 10-man squads. You need, with 10-man squads, Unleash Rage will net you like what, 6 to 10 extra attacks. So Quickening seems like actually like a really low value pick here. If you, the only time to take Quickening is when you don't have these big squads, and he has the big squads. So this list is a bit all over the place. I would second Lightning Claws. They also refill all wounds. Definitely take the Assault Hellblasters over the other options. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The rerolls would be kind of important as well. So this is a strange list, and I think I don't know if we need, like, what is this? This is like 480, 650 points of heavy support, but 4 regular troop choices. I'm just struggling to see synergy. And I think the Predator Annihilator is not in a good spot right now. See, if this was a Dreadnought, then you could use the Wisdom of the Ancient and the Dreadnought to buff both units here with reroll 1s. If this was a Redemptor Dreadnought, it's the same cost as well. The Redemptor Dreadnought's going to have 2 more wounds. It's also going to have Duty Eternal. It's also going to have a Fist. So Redemptor Dreadnought is way better than the Predator Annihilator. Plus, it can do an aura of reroll 1s for your Eradicators and your Hellblasters. So you need to consider swapping that out. And then we already said consider swapping this sword out. Consider switching this power. Consider changing some of these troop choices because they're not really that great. There's a lot that could change with this list, and then the Infernal Pistol stuff. So we will score this list, but I guess it's a bit of a weird state. So maybe like 8.5 for OBSEC, because do you know what, Lagmeister? I actually forgot that you had those two you had the Rites of War and the Visage of Death in your list, man. So I actually think your OBSEC should have probably actually been up at like a 9 now. That's my bad. I just realised that when I'm looking. Yeah. I mean, I guess you marked you down a little bit for your tactical squad, but I never marked you up for Visage of Death and Rites of War, so we'll just do that now. Oh, oops. Okay, so Matthew, we did that. Anti-Horde, I mean, I guess we've got some. If we had a bunch of Assault Bolters and Assault Plasmas, then that would be a lot better than what we have. So we just have a bunch of Bolt Rifles, some Sanguary Pistols. Yeah, maybe like a 7.5. I'm struggling to see the synergy. Against vehicles, I mean, we've got our one squad of Sangri Guard. We do have the heavy melter rifles, Eradicators, so I mean they can do a lot of work against vehicles. But I mean it's just not your typical Blood Angels list at all. So something like 8.5. Actually, maybe it was 8.5 if we had a really strong hitting character, but we don't have that. And we have the Death Company with Power Fists rather than rather than Thunderhammers. So yeah, we'll leave it on an 8.5, but I don't necessarily think it's super great. And then mobility is actually pretty weak on this list. We have the 2 jump packs in our HQ, but nothing else. So 450 odd points of troops that are immobile or not that mobile, and like 600 points of heavy support. So this is probably the least mobile list we've seen today. And then specialization, yeah, I mean, like, to me this list is way too specialized into shooting, but it's also shooting without great synergy. So yeah, I'm gonna say like a 6.5 again. So I think there's a lot of work that could be done here on this list, Matthew. And I am doing videos commonly on competitive lists for Blood Angels and stuff like that. So if you want to see, if you check the channel, you will see, like, I think I am actually going to do a video this week on like another tour, like a high ranking tournament list. So you're in an okay spot, I guess, but like as you go forward, if you start adding some of these high meta units, and like I guess here is the list of the top 10 meta units right now. You have the Sangri Guard and the Death Company, but you do not have anything else in this top 10 list. I mean Eradicators, but they are coming in at like 9th. So maybe that's something you need to consider. Okay, so we're going to move on to the last list for today. And I did notice in the chat, how do you submit your lists? What you do is you go over to the Blood Angels Commander YouTube channel, you click on this community tab, and then you just put your list in the latest community post. So just find the list, hit comment, and then just paste your list from Battlescribe, and then I'll pick them up from in there. And the only other thing to say today is we have now opened a Discord, and there's a Facebook group. So if you guys want to chat anymore, you can join us in Discord and or Facebook in the video description links down below. And then lastly today we're going to look at a list by Skirmish Games. And the one thing I want to say, Jace, before you do submit your list is we do have quite a big backlog. You can be a member of the channel, and if you're a member of a channel, your list, the queue time is about 2 weeks. If you're not a member of the channel, the queue time is about 8 weeks. So if you want to become a member, you can hit that join button, or if you're happy to wait, you're happy to wait. But we just give members priority every week in the queues. Okay, list number 5, Skirmish Games. Now, Skirmish Games actually messaged, I think, on Facebook and said he was nervous about we going over the lists. And I did say to him, like, I don't want anyone to be nervous about sending your list in. Like, the whole idea of this show is to help people make stronger lists, to help all the Blood Angels players. So if you're not sure, or if you're new, or anything like that, like, please don't feel like there's any judgment here. All I'm trying to do is help, really. I want you guys to win just as many games as I win, yeah, if like I want to try and tell you, probably try and save you guys some money, right? Because like everybody could make a stronger list if they bought some new models, but you know yourself, you might buy a new model and then a week later you're like, oh, I played with that model and it really didn't do what I wanted it to do, and I just spent $50 on it and I spent ages painting it, and then you're moving on. So I guess the whole goal of this is to try and help you guys know what you should need to do next, or know what synergies you need to add to your list to make it to level up. Cool. All right. So skirmish games, and for this section we do review 2,000 point lists. Sometimes I'll review smaller lists, but 2,000 is what I play, so that's what I try and focus on reviewing. So we start with the Captain in Terminator armor. He is Artisan of War with Adamantium Mantle, Combi Melta, Relic Blade, Rites of War, Visage of Death. Okay, so this Captain, I guess, is going double down on OBSEC, which I guess we've talked a little bit about today already in stream, and something to consider maybe. Maybe we don't need to go double down on OBSEC. Maybe one of these two picks would be fine, but I mean, it's something that we can definitely consider. Then we have a Chaplain in Terminator armor, so this sounds to me like it's going to be some Terminators in this list, and the first two guys are in Terminators. Canticle of Hate, and he has the Combi Melta, and he has the Icon of Angel. Then we have the Librarian in Terminator armor, Unleash Rage, Shield of Sanguinius, Psychic Fortress. I'm not sure you need Psychic Fortress and Shield of Sanguinius, but I feel like those are kind of mutually exclusive in that, like, but okay. And then we have the Combi Melta, the Force Axe, and the Tomb of Malcador. I like how you've got 3 Meltas in here. I mean, they're just handy to, especially if you're deep striking in, just pop something with a Melta shot and hopefully do some damage. I've gone 4-0 with revisions to my list since episode 4. Thank you, Eric. That is super nice of you to say. Congratulations on going 4-0. Why don't you share your list in one of the groups? That would be some vindication for this show actually providing value. So I appreciate that quite a lot. Thanks for letting me know that. All right, so Intercessor squads. We have 2 of them, one with auto rifles, one with bolt rifles, and this one with auto rifles is a bigger squad. So this is a 7-man with the Sergeant with the Power Fist on this Sergeant, and then tactical squad with Sergeant with the Power Fist, and then a Meltigan. So a bit of a strange loadout for the tactical squad, but maybe we'll come back to this tactical squad. We then have a Terminator squad, which is a shooting Terminator squad. Cool, we don't see these guys very often. So it's Power Fists, Storm Bolters, one with heavy weapon, and then the Sergeant, and I assume the Sergeant has the Power Sword. I think he has to take it. So it's a 6-man Terminator squad. We then have Vanguard Veteran squads with 3 Storm Shields and Chainswords, a bunch of Lightning Claws, and Infernal Pistol and Relic Blade. I generally like this quite a lot. I like having the cheap models to take the wounds on and survive on the Storm Shields. And I guess we've basically done this times 2. We've talked a lot about how Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws right now are very strong. So this is a good... these are good solid picks. I run this very slightly differently, where I keep Storm Shields even on all of them except the Sergeant. But I mean, I think it's, maybe in hindsight, this is absolutely fine as well. I suppose it depends on how much fire you think they're going to take, and if you think you're going to be okay surviving it. Are you damn on 2,000 points? Or are you, how many points? 199. Okay. Because I was thinking, I think a Lightning Claw costs 3 points. Yeah, okay. And then, sorry, what was the first? Was it the first one was a battalion, was it? Yeah, that's a battalion, and then you've also got a Vanguard, which has 2 Librarian Dreadnoughts. Interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen someone run 2 Librarian Dreadnoughts like this, but we have one with Quickening and Wings, and one with Blood Boil and Wings as well. Did we? Yeah, we have Unleash Rage on our other Librarian. Okay, so this list has actually got a ton of Psychic in it, and both of these have been made Hero of the Chapters. Alright, Imperium Sword and Champion of Humanity. I kind of like this. I guess that's maybe where your Psychic Fortress aura is coming in. So you're gonna make these librarians have an invulnerable save, and we're gonna try and get them across the board. That's very interesting. I have an idea for a show, John. I have 5,565 points of Blood Angels model. I give you a list, and you can build my best army. Do you put 2 claws on the sergeants? I usually like the Infernal Pistol on the sergeant, so I have 3 Vanguard Veteran sergeants made at the moment. One has a Relic Blade and Infernal Pistol, another one has Infernal Pistol and a Lightning Claw, and the other one has the Relic Blade and the Storm Shield. And I guess it's just what points I have is how I fill up that last slot. But I am running 2, so I have 3 sergeants built, and I am running 2 Vanguard Veteran squads. And what I'm running, what's in my current list is one like this, and one with an Infernal Pistol and a Claw. Then we have what is this, like 2 little squads of veterans. So these are 2-man squads, Lightning Claw and Storm Shields on both. These are the guys that I was literally painting on stream last night. They're very useful for just doing some secondary objectives, or holding adding a bit more security to a backfield objective or something like that. They can also be a bit of a pain with the Lightning Claws to have to deal with the Storm Shields. And then finally, I guess you could Mastercraft the Relic Blade with Angel's Ascendant, right? Which would give you a decent punch of extra damage from that Vanguard Veteran Sergeant, and he does have those extra attacks, and he is protected by a bunch of guys with Storm Shields. So I mean that's a lot of sense as well. And then finally we have a Sangri Guard, and it's 2, 4, 5, 7-man Sangri Guard, 2 Infernal Pistols, 4 axes, 3 swords. So let me just remind myself what this is. So Sangri Guard, 2 squads of veterans, 2 Librarian Dreadnoughts, 2 Vanguard Veterans, Terminators, Tactical Squad, 2 Intercessor Squads, Captain Terminator Arm, Chaplain Terminator Arm, Librarian Terminator Arm. So yeah, I don't know why you were so worried about this list. I mean, it seems like it seems like it's got a lot going for it, right? We know Librarian Dreadnoughts can do a ton of damage, especially with Imperium Sword and Champion of Humanity. I guess one having Quickening. That's a lot of 3 damage attacks coming out there. We have a lot of Lightning Claws coming out here as well, or a lot of attacks coming out with Lightning Claws. A decent amount of Storm Bolter shots and an Assault Cannon, and obviously then the Power Fists from this big Terminator squad. The 2 little units to collect objectives potentially, or do secondaries. The Sanguary Guard to do what Sangri Guard commonly do. And then the 3 characters in Terminator armor will be a little bit more survivable and difficult to deal with. So, auto bolt rifles and a larger Intercessor squad to push forward. So I guess the only real thing that I'm seeing here is, like, I would have liked to see some Phobos. And I think if we could get an Incursor squad and an Infiltrator squad in here, then this list is actually starting to look pretty scary. I mean, if we did an Incursor squad for this squad, you would be saving yourself 45 points. If we did an Infiltrator squad for this squad, you'd save yourself 3 points. So you'd have 48 points. So I mean, like, if you could find, I don't know what you would do with these 48 points. You could maybe add 1 more to your Sanguary Guard. I suppose you could add 1 more Terminator if you wanted to go for a 7-man Terminator. I think that, but maybe you don't need to. Maybe like if the tactical squad is going to be your backfield holding unit, then swap it out for an Infiltrator squad, and you just made this list a lot better. But I mean, overall, it's different from what I would normally see, or it's different from what people are normally choosing. But I think it is. Yeah, I mean, I guess I realised you could take multiple Librarian Dreadnoughts. I just never really did it. but it made it a cool option, and it's a strong character that can do a lot of damage. So I mean, why not? Okay. And then all these Terminators have Meltas, and we did go for the whole double obsec, or the add obsec, remove obsec on this Terminator Captain. I think again I'd probably just keep one of them and make the Terminator Captain even more survivable with like a relic. But I suppose that's just my preference. I mean, I guess you could make him more survivable with a Storm Shield, but maybe he doesn't need to be. Yeah, maybe a good option in the Terminator Captain would actually be to like replace this with the Archangel Shard, or give him like the Hammer of Baal might be a really interesting option here actually as well. So, and then on your second Warlord trait, take like Gift of Foresight, right? But I mean, if you didn't see the review for the last person skirmish, then we did talk about like, I prefer to kill units on objectives than try and out obsec them. And I don't mind maybe picking one of these, like Rites of War or Visage of Death. I'm just not sure you need both. I'm now thinking of spamming them. The main issue I can see with that is that you can only cast the same power once per turn, right? So only one of the Dreadnoughts can fly. So that gives you a little bit of a trickiness about how you maneuver them. But yeah, I mean, I guess that's beside the point. So I guess our obsec, I guess we don't have any Phobos units, so it's probably like an 8, but we did go double down on Phobos. We did do double down on 2 relics to add to the obsec. So I think like maybe an 8-5 here. The list really lacks shooting. I guess that's the one thing to say about this list. We have the Terminators that can shoot, but they'll never be on the board likely in turn 1. I mean, I guess we do have some auto bolt rifles, and we do have some Sanguary bolt guns, but I think overall anti-infantry may be a bit weaker in this list in terms of like, not in terms of killing infantry, but in terms of clearing them out with the gun line to be able to make those key charges. So maybe it's like an 8, and I would have, and I mean, it's probably going to be an 8 because like we've literally taken two Librarian Dreadnoughts plus 3 HQ, so I guess something had to suffer, and I think that's probably what suffers. How do we do up against monsters? I guess we're probably going to be able to do a 9.5. Like, if we get both those Librarian Dreadnoughts into combat, that's going to do a lot of damage, especially with the Warlord traits that we've picked for them. We also, I suppose, have Vanguard Veterans that we know do a lot of damage in combat, and we have Terminators that can do a lot of damage, and then we have the Sangri Guard, and all these characters are armed with like melta-guns, and if you have the Librarian and Terminator armor, just be aware that the Fourth Sword will actually do more damage in the Math Hammer than the Fourth Axe. But I mean, I guess it's kind of a situational pick as well. I do wonder if picking Hammer of Baal here might be a better choice in losing, like, so keep Visage of Death, but give him like maybe the Hammer of Baal if we can do that. Because it would be Rites of War. If you lose Rites of War, you'd have to give him another Warlord trait. So give him Gift of Foresight maybe. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you have Gift of Foresight, then you're pretty much wounding on 2s. Hitting on 2s, probably wounding on like 3s, but then re-rolling 1 hit, 1 wound, and 1 save every turn is generally pretty strong. Oh, thanks, Mick. That's very kind of you to say. And then mobility in the list. Mobility, I guess, is pretty good. Vanguard Veterans, Sangri Guard, Librarian Dreadnought, only 1 can fly, and then our Terminators are all essentially deep striking. So mobility is better than the previous list, but probably gets stalled out a little bit. I feel like it's probably a 7.5. I need to go back to Tom's list and work out just exactly what Tom had mobility-wise. Do you know what? I think Tom's list was actually a little bit more mobile, so maybe I was a bit harsh on Tom. Maybe it should have been an 8. So I think this is a 7.5. And then specialization for skirmish. I guess specialization, we have doubled down a little bit on melee here, really to possibly a detriment. It really depends what army we're up against. Against some armies it might not be a problem. Against some it might very much be a problem because, you know, there's too many chaff units. We can't make those key charges, or librarian dreadnoughts end up stuck fighting into chaff or something like that. So I think it's probably like a 7-5 for specialization. But I mean, there's a bit of abstractness in the specialization, in that I just tell you how I feel about them. Like there's no real scoring for this. I just try and think of like how it might play on the battle. And I think that the first thing I would do here is get rid of this tactical squad. I'm not sure what value it brings, and replace it out with a Phobos, a troop of Phobos, Infiltrators or Incursors, and that gives you access to the guerrilla tactics, and being able to use those guerrilla tactics is also very important. How much weight do we place on troop units? Infiltrators, Incursors, Intercessors, Assault Intercessors tend to favour it as cheap as possible, so either 3 Assault Intercessors or possibly Intercessor Marines, knowing their limited role. I see the value of Phobos, but it don't occur to me to dedicate the extra points in troops. Well, if you play in the highest tier, Alex, and I don't know what tier you play in, but in the highest tier, the enemy will have ways to hit your backfield and delete any unit of Intercessors or any unit of Assault Intercessors off an objective. And if that doesn't happen in your meta, then, you know, that's absolutely fine. Maybe it just doesn't happen in your meta and you win games and your Intercessors in the backfield are absolutely fine. But I guess if a good example would be like, if you play against me, for example, I will 100% kill a unit of Intercessors from a backfield objective in a single turn with like a squad of Death Company or with a squad of Vanguard Veterans with Lightning Claws. Like, you know, if I can't get to you in turn 2, I will get to you in turn 3, and I will 100% kill the maths. Unless I roll absolute dog shit, the maths tell me that I will have enough damage there to kill like 13 or 14 of your models. And if you think you can survive losing a backfield objective, and then what will end up happening, you'll lose that backfield objective, and now I'll have like 5 or 6 Vanguard Veterans with Storm Shields, probably in cover, because you were probably in cover, right? So I probably moved to charge you in cover, and then I'll consolidate into the cover. So now you're going to have 6 Vanguard Veterans in your backfield, and they're going to be on a 1-up save if you try and shoot them, obviously with a 4+ invulnerable save, and I'm going to take a huge swing of primary points against you. And I mean, I do that as a Blood Angels player, but other factions 100% can do it. Chaos can do it. Sisters of Battle can do it. Necrons can do it. Pretty much any player that has something that can deep strike fairly effectively will potentially be able to kill Intercessors or Tactical Marines. Infiltrators, because you can't deep strike within 12 inches of Infiltrators, means you can't also shoot any weapon as a range of 12 against Infiltrators. So if you have anything dropping in with like melta-guns, then they will not be in range to shoot the Infiltrators. So this is why Infiltrators are potentially like a high value pick, because it essentially makes that backfield objective 100% safe for a turn. Sure, after they've deep striked in, the enemy can then move and charge or whatever, but if they do that, then you have time to react to it, right? You have 1 turn to react to it, to try and get something back to hold on to your objective. If, I don't know, a good example is Sisters of Battle. I forget the names. They have 2 squads, Seraphim and Zephyrin. One of them, each member of the squad has 2 pistols, right? And they can take 2 infernal pistols and they can shoot them at 12 inches when they arrive from deep strike. Well, if you have Infiltrators, they can essentially have to deep strike in out with 12 inches of you, so they can't shoot you, so you're safe. And then the other thing to say is the Phobos units, you may have missed this, but Phobos units actually get the smokescreen keyword. So anyone that's shooting your Phobos units, you can pay 1 CP to make them -1 to hit, same as smokescreen on a Rhino, or another vehicle, and essentially that that basically makes Phobos units 20%, potentially 20% more survivable against any shooting, right? Because like if you think of a dice, like just a d6 for example, and you take 6 and you divide it by if you take 1 and you divide it by 6, it doesn't make them 20% more survivable, it makes them 16.6% more survivable. So the same thing goes if enemy has enough units. If the enemy has enough shooting and deep strike to destroy a tactical squad, then you potentially there for 1 CP make it that they can't be destroyed. And again, these sort of swings in close games, these can be the difference between winning or losing. Like you lose a backfield objective, you end up -5 points. If the enemy can take it and they get +5 points, there's a 10-point swing, and it's a very easy swing, right? And I've done this like so many times, I guess. I was going to say, like, maybe I like here, let me see, here's a great example of a game, right, where I played with so up here behind this objective here, this is me against World Eaters, right? He had 10 Chaos Cultists on this objective, and I believe this is about turn 3 or 4 the screenshot was taken. So turn 1, he has this Contemptor with some sort of giant chainsword. This chainsword gets like 6 attacks and it does about 6 damage a swing. I don't exactly know what model it was, but this Dreadnought was moving forward essentially to come and crush my army. I dropped my 10-man death company. There was a 5-man death company here, charged in and killed 8 of his cultists. He actually had to pay 2 CP or they would have failed their leadership test. But then what happened was this Dreadnought, who had spent like turn 1 moving here, in turn 2 it literally had to flick round and come back into his own objective, or his. So basically like turn 3 of this game, right? So obviously like my Sangri Guard are halfway up the board, like 1, 2, 3. Turn 3 of the game, his best melee combat unit is now stuck in his own deployment zone because my death company came in here, and basically if he hadn't brought this back, he'd have lost his objective, and that swing would have hurt him. I mean, he's losing this game anyway, but that's one example, I guess, of the zoning. And I'm trying to think if I have another one. Again, here's one game against Death Guard, and over here on this backfield, so my deployment was this end of the board, Death Guard deployment was that end of the board. I have a 5-man death company that actually came down like over here in cover. So they came down in turn 2, turn 3 they jumped forward, and then they charge in. There was actually 2 Beasts of Nurgle in this objective, and I killed one of them. And I mean, like, it's just it's something to really consider about backfield objectives, I guess. And these games are slightly older and have a horrible amount of unpainted models in them. But I did a video on Infiltrators and Phobos units, and it often comes up in stream. Like, people maybe don't see the value of the Phobos units or whatever, but I see huge value in them, and I highly recommend, if you don't. I mean, it's a great thing that one box of Phobos Marines actually has Infiltrators and Incursors in it, and you could make 5 of each, and you could try both. But in my top 10 for Blood Angels right now, I have both those units, and my lists 100% are made up of Phobos troops. I guess, I mean, as I say, it might not happen at all in your meta, right? Like, your backfield objectives feel totally safe. You don't have to worry about anything. In that case, then don't change anything. However, just if I come up against you in a tournament, I will 100% kill your Intercessors on that backfield objective, and it won't, it'll be a high percentage play for me. I will know that I can drop down those guys in cover, hopefully, in turn 2, and then in turn 3 I will make that charge with Savage Echoes. I'll absolutely manage to kill 5 Intercessors, and then you'll have a precarious position where you either need to send something back to your own deployment zone to get that objective, or you just have to be happy that I am now taking the extra 10 points again. You've lost 5 points per turn, and I'm getting 5 more. So, yeah, cool stream today and some cool lists. I want to thank everybody who did submit their lists. I mean, there wouldn't be a show without all the submissions, so thank you for those guys. I will post all these lists up into the comments on YouTube, like in an hour's time. Like, it takes a little while for the comments to be enabled, or however that works. I don't fully know. So we'll post them up later. And then the last thing to say is, so next week, we'll have a look at who we're looking at next week. We've got a list from Tom, Tony, Jo, Jay Sharp, and Julian. And Julian was in earlier, so I guess, Julian, if you have a change to your list you want to make for next week, just leave me a comment in the community tab and we'll get it updated. So, yeah, so I mean, my plan for this week, I think, is we're going to try and do a video on a competitive list for maybe Tuesday, and then I think we're going to look at Sangri Guard this week, because we haven't looked at them for a little while, so we'll maybe look at them for Friday night, or for Friday's tactics video. Of course, there is still the giveaway going, so if you haven't yet entered the giveaway, then please do that, because it'd be really nice if some of you regular guys won some of the models we're giving away, and you can do that. You just need to find this video here, the Leviathan versus the Derodale, and just leave any comment you want in that video and we'll enter you in the giveaway. And that's going to be drawn, I guess we'll draw it at like 5 PM in the middle of next week's stream. We'll probably do the two members list, and then we'll pick the winners for the giveaway. So cool. Hopefully we'll be back for a hobby hangout as well this week. We've got loads of models still to get painted and stuff. And yeah, if you did enjoy today's stream, please hit that like button as well. It really helps me out. So yep, thanks everybody for watching. Thanks for super chats. They're all always appreciated, and thank you for a few people who became members over this last week. That's really appreciated as well. And yeah, we do now have a Discord. I believe if we click in here to the... Let me just mute this. We'll get some horrible inception. Down here, there is a Discord. Yes, BE Commander Discord. So if you want to join us on Discord now, you can do that as well. And if you are a channel member, you can actually link your Discord to YouTube, and then you get access to some private members-only rooms over there in Discord. So you can do that too. So, alright guys, have a great weekend. I will see you all, I'm sure, pretty soon, and I am actually still replying to everybody's comments from that Leviathan video. It had like 500 comments on it, so if you haven't had a reply from me for a few days, because I do try and answer all the comments, I'm working through an insane backlog of comments. So cool. Then we will see you all, I'm sure, pretty soon. By the blood are we made, brothers. Thanks for hanging out, and take care. Peace.